why you should change your financial advisor if your advisor only focuses on selling you a commodity. By the end of this video episode, you will understand why advisors who just sell products or provide service like any do are a dime a dozen. And you want an advisor who will create a meaningful transformation for you and those that you care about by eliminating the financial dangers that cause most people to outlive their money. So, I'm Doug Andrew. I've been a financial strategist and retirement planning specialist now for more than 48 years. I've also trained well over 4,000 financial advisors, CPAs, tax attorneys. In fact, my publisher originally was Time Warner after I self-published my first book. And they estimated clear back in 2003 to 2005 that over 50,000 advisors were buying my books in bulk by the case and sort of passing them out like loose cannons. And they were really messing up an incredible instrument because they were not doing it correctly. And so this is why I'm very passionate about making sure that the general public understands how to find the right financial advisor to help them implement strategies correctly. Because if you don't do it, you can miss out on the rate of return and the tax benefits to the maximum optimal level that you want, okay? And so I wrote a book called The 10 Keys Transformation because I have invested north of $3 million in my life, sharpening my saw, as Stephen Covey would say. And there's 10 game-changing principles that I teach financial advisors and also doctors and dentists and so forth that they ought to help their clients and their customers in these 10 areas if they really are interested in doing the best for their clients. And so this is actually key number 2 out of 10. And in that book, again, my audience in the book are financial advisors or any type of entrepreneur. And I said, create a meaningful transformation for your clients, your customers, your patients. Now, I'm talking to you as the client or the customer or the patient here. So when I talk about it, I often refer to a book I read years ago called The Experience Economy. And this book was written by Joseph Pine and James Gilmore. Now, in this book, these authors talk about the concept that people will generally pay far more for something they perceive has a higher value. Now, that sounds like a no-brainer, right? But they use the example of coffee, and I've never thought about it deeper than when I read the book. So, I'm not a coffee drinker, but they would say, okay, now when you look at coffee in its pure commodity form, okay, coffee beans. A cup of coffee is only, at the time they wrote the book, about 2 cents. So as a commodity, coffee beans, a cup of coffee is only worth 2 cents. That's what it costs or what it's worth. Now, when you take those coffee beans and you make them into coffee grounds and you package them and you buy them in the grocery store to make a cup of coffee at home, a unique product, a cup of coffee out of those coffee beans, it goes up about 10 times in price. And so people in their homes are shelling out an average of, let's say, 25 cents for a cup of coffee they make at home. So we go from a commodity coffee beans up to a cup of coffee. That's a unique product, okay, out of those coffee beans. When that cup of coffee enters the convenience sector in a restaurant or a 7-Eleven, it goes up 2 to 4 times in price again, maybe to 50 cents or $1 a cup. And people are willing to pay for it because of the service or the convenience, okay? Now, Starbucks got famous for doing what? They were the internet cafe. This was the stop between the house and your office where you could hang out with other like-minded people in an atmosphere where coffee drinkers would enjoy their espresso, a cup of coffee, okay? And so they made it a unique experience. Now, again, I'm not a coffee drinker, but I travel a lot. And many times, every 90 days, I'd go to Chicago for years to be in a mastermind group strategic coach. And when I would leave and go through the security at Chicago O'Hare, sometimes I would get through sooner than later, and I would stand in line at this tiny Starbucks kiosk, and I would wait in line 5, 10, 15 minutes to get an orange juice or a banana or a poppy seed muffin or something. And I would watch people wait 15 minutes and then shell out $4 or $5 for an espresso-based cup of liquid that was really only 15 cents worth of liquid. And they walked away proud they did it, because I had Starbucks on there. They were loyal to the Starbucks experience, okay, which was a unique experience, even though they were buying it at a kiosk at an airport. So we pay more for a unique product than commodities. We pay more for an exceptional service than just a unique product, and we will pay more for a unique experience. Now, let me give you one other example of this. Years ago, myself, I was gifted by my children a Harley-Davidson motorcycle. This was in 1999, and I had like 30 other friends that got Harleys. And so every year we would ship them to a destination, sometimes even overseas, to Germany or to New Zealand. But that year in 1999, we shipped them to Atlanta, and then we flew in because we're busy business owners. And we took the Harley rides down through Daytona and everything through Bike Week and what have you. We get down to Miami and our spouses flew in. And when we went down to Key West and then came back to the Everglades, and we ended up in Orlando at the Disney theme parks. Now, this was in May, one of the hottest May days on record. And 3 times the first day at Disney World, I stopped at an ice cart and shelled out $2.50 for a 20-ounce bottle of water, okay? Now they're $4. But back then they were $2.50. Let's just use that one. Now I could have walked 15 more steps to a drinking fountain between the men's and ladies' restroom and gotten a drink of water for free. But I shelled out $2.50 for this cold bottle of water because of the convenience and so forth, without batting an eye. Now, the third bottle was about half full still when we went out of the park, and it was warm, and I tossed it in the trash without thinking a thing of it. Then we went out and we filled up our Harleys with premium gasoline, and we screamed highway robbery. Why? Because they were charging us $1.60 a gallon for premium in 1999, and back home, premium was only $1.30. They were ripping us off. Now, do the math. How many ounces in a gallon? 128. We were paying the equivalent, of $16 a gallon for water. $2.50 for 20 ounces. Do the math. We were paying the equivalent of $16 a gallon for water and throwing it in the trash. And then we go and we fill up our car with gasoline at $1.60. We were shelling out 10 times as much for water as gasoline. If you would have told me 25 years earlier, in 1974, when I started, that people at the turn of the century would pay as much for a gallon of water as a gallon of gasoline, I would have laughed at you. But 10 times as much? Why were we willing to do that in Disney World? Oh, because we're having a unique experience. Price goes out the window. They have a monopoly on you. You will shell out $5 for a hot dog you could have gotten at Costco for 60 cents. So it goes, you go to the movie theater. They have a monopoly on you. You're watching the latest Harry Potter or Avengers film or whatever, and you shell out $6 for 20 cents worth of popcorn or licorice that you could have gotten at Costco. So why do you do that? Because you're having a unique experience. But here is the epiphany. There is one level that people value even more than a unique experience, and that's a meaningful transformation. Advisors, they don't understand. You must create a meaningful transformation. So if you think about your advisor and you simply tell your friend, oh yeah, they sell insurance or they sell mutual funds, they're just providing a commodity. They're clear down at the commodity level. Maybe they have unique products that other advisors don't offer. Maybe they give great service. They return your phone calls within maybe 3 days or whatever. That's as high as most advisors ever get. Your advisor should create a unique experience. Education is a unique experience. I educate my clients for 15, 25, 60 hours before I take them on as a client. That's a unique experience. But then my goal is to create a meaningful transformation. If your advisor is not doing that, you maybe should think twice. So you want to see an advisor that has sort of a monopoly. This is a good kind of monopoly. See, you grant monopolies to your hairdresser, your massage therapist. I go past 100 other dentists on the way to my dentist. Why? Because my dentist only provides what I want in the best way compared to all the other dentists. So I will pass many other dentists. But if dentists are just a dime a dozen and you can go to any of them, then they're at a commodity level. Is this making sense? So what I want you to think about is if your advisor is dealing at this level or maybe this level, that's as high as most get. You want an advisor who creates a unique experience for you by educating you is my favorite way to do that, and then a meaningful transformation. So I'm going to give you a little insight into how I do this. In my books, and at the end of this episode, I want to gift you a free copy of this most recent best-selling 300-page book. But see, I always wanted to teach high concepts coupled with high touch. That's why I have this book that half of it is left brain charts and graphs. The right side, okay, is for the right brain. These are all the 62 actual stories. Right brain and left brain, okay? And so I'm going to show you how you can get a free copy of this. But folks, here's how I do it. There are 3 dimensions of what I call authentic wealth. Because when I say the word assets, what kinds of things do most people think of first when you say the word assets? They think of their house, their cash, their stocks, their bonds, their real estate. But when you think about it, those are just things. Those are just material possessions. When I ask people, what are the most important assets that you value, that you cherish, that you possess on this earth? Now they say family, health, values, beliefs. Yeah, these kinds of assets involve people. These are human assets. These are our core assets. I put these under the foundational assets for abundant living. And so a lot of advisors just focus on money, money, money. It's not just about the money. And so I put them under foundational assets, heritage, talents, unique abilities, charitable foundations, and so forth. Now, there's a third dimension of authentic wealth that involves the wisdom that we gain throughout our life. That's our intellectual assets. Wisdom is a product of knowledge times experiences. Just the good ones? Have you learned more from your bad experiences like I have? Yeah. And then your formal education, reputation, methods, systems, traditions, alliances, ideas, and skills. This is like a 3-legged stool. The 3 dimensions of authentic wealth. You need to be balanced. And so whenever I ask anybody, if you had to let go of one of these 3 categories of assets, financial, foundational, or intellectual, you had to bankrupt one and start all over accumulating that category of assets. But you could keep the other 2. Not only keep the other 2, but transfer them into future generations. But you had to bankrupt or let go of and start all over accumulating one of these 3 categories. Which one would you let go of? Abundant-minded people immediately say, the money. Yeah. Why would you let go of the money? Because you can rebuild that one using the other 2. You know, most religions believe that, you come to this earth possessing these to one degree or another. If you believe in a life after this one, these are the ones you return to your creator and report on. Have you ever figured out how to take the money with you when you die? Yeah, there's no luggage racks on hearses, as the song says. 2 affluent guys died and went to the pearly gates. One turned to the other and said, man, how much did you leave behind? The other one said, all of it. Yeah, you don't take it with you. Isn't it interesting that traditional estate and financial planning seems to focus on the least important category on the family balance sheet, the money? If that's what your advisor only focuses on, you maybe want to think twice about changing your advisor to one who focuses on all 3 dimensions of authentic wealth. So this is why in my company it's called 3-dimensional wealth, because it's about the financial, the foundational assets, and the intellectual assets. You want to be balanced because people say, Doug, what do you do? And I say, well, I take the wobble out of people's life. Because a lot of people spend a lot of their health, let's say, accumulating their wealth. And then later in life, they're spending all their wealth trying to regain their health. That's really stupid. They were out of balance. Some accumulate their wealth at the expense of relationships with their spouse, their kids, their grandkids, their God. And at the end of the day, they always say, what was all that for? I'm not going to take any of this money with me, and I have no relationships. They were bankrupt in the other two categories. They were wobbling on just one. So I focus on these other, I call them the legacy dimensions. They're more important than the money. And so I would rather leave behind KASH. That's knowledge, attitude, skills, and habits. That's an acronym. I'd rather leave behind knowledge, attitude, skills, and habits to my kids and grandkids than dumping a bunch of CASH in their laps. That'll ruin most of them. I want to leave behind how to fish instead of dumping fish in their lap. So that is the important differentiator of what I'm talking about here when you want to create a meaningful transformation. Is this beginning to make sense? And so this is why at three-dimensional wealth, we believe it's more important that values are understood before the assets are valued. Then they can be brought into balance and harmony to provide ever-increasing results. If your advisor doesn't approach things this way, I would think twice, okay? And maybe point them, and they can come and learn how to do this, because we teach advisors in a unique mastermind group how to do these things that I'm talking about. So this is how you can learn more. In my book, The Laser Fund, this is my 11th book, and it's published by Three Dimensional Wealth. But I want you to claim a free copy of this 300-page book that I've alluded to. It's high concepts coupled with high touch. In other words, this side has all the charts and graphs. These are high concepts of how to accumulate, access, and transfer your money tax-free, diversify, and create the foundation for a tax-free retirement. But if you learn more by stories, the high touch, you flip it over and you read this side, and this is the high touch, where you can see how this actually works in real life for all kinds of financial goals. So simply go to laserfund.com, LASER fund.com, or click on the link below, and you contribute a nominal amount towards the shipping and handling. I'll cover the rest of that, and I'll pay for the book. You don't need to pay $20 on Amazon. I'll gift it to you. And I'll fire out a copy, but there's options in there to listen and learn, watch and learn, even master classes, and you maybe want to check out one of our educational events in your area. So this is to your brighter future. This isn't about me. This is about you.